everyone, and welcome to today's episode. I want to start with a simple but revealing question. Has technology made love easier to find or harder? It's something many of us wonder about, especially now that so much of modern dating happens through apps, screens, and social platforms. In fact, according to the Pew Research Center's 2023 report, 53% of adults under 30 have used a dating site or app, meaning more than half of young adults are entering relationships in a way no previous generation has. But the shift didn't happen out of nowhere. A 2020 Pew Research Center report found that digital tools now play an essential role in how Americans meet, express interest, and maintain romantic relationships. Texting, social media, videos, and apps have become woven into the fabric of dating. And researchers have been noticing the impact. A UW-Madison article titled, "Does Technology Interfere in Our Love Stories?" explores how digital tools influence intimacy, conflict, and expectations in ways we don't realize. Meanwhile, the Solentech article, "How Technology Has Transformed Love," explains that technology has radically changed how relationships begin, evolve, and end, redefining everything from communication speed to the meaning of connection. So I want to explore what these changes mean. Psychologically, socially, and emotionally. We'll look at the old world of dating, the new one shaped by technology, and how all these shifts affect the way we form romantic bonds. But before we understand what's changed, we need to understand what used to be normal. Before digital technology reshaped romance, the way people met and built relationships was profoundly different, slower, more local, and often shaped by circumstance. For most of human history, relationships grew out of shared physical environments. People met through school, religious communities, family networks, workplaces, or neighborhood gatherings. This wasn't just cultural. Psychology helps explain why traditional courtship worked the way it did. For example, the proximity effect tells us that simply being physically close to someone increases attraction. You didn't need hundreds of options. You needed one person you saw regularly in class or at work. Similarly, the mere exposure effect shows that familiarity builds liking. The more we see someone, the more we tend to warm to them. These principles created a natural foundation for romantic development in pre-digital environments. Communication also shaped relationships differently. Before smartphones, people used handwritten letters, face-to-face conversations, and landline calls. Letters took days or weeks to arrive, and even phone calls required deliberate planning. There was no instant messaging, no typing bubbles, and definitely no checking whether someone viewed your story. These communication patterns created a slower emotional rhythm, time to think, time to anticipate, and time to wonder. Social norms also guided relationships. The dating pool was smaller and expectations were clearer. Families and communities often played a role in shaping who people dated, how they dated, and what normal courtship looked like. Many relationships developed because two people simply happened to live near each other or share daily routines. This earlier world, one defined by physical presence, limited options, slower communication, and face-to-face expression, is the baseline against which digital dating should be understood. Every technological shift has altered these patterns, often in subtle but powerful psychological ways. Today, instead of dating being rooted in circumstance, it is shaped by choice and technology, and that brings us into the digital era. When smartphones, social media, and dating platforms entered everyday life, the foundations of romantic connection began changing rapidly, not only in how people meet potential partners, but also in how they communicate, express emotion, and build intimacy. The Hernando Sun article, "Digital Age Dating: How Tech is Changing Relationships," explains that dating apps like Tinder, Bumble, and Hinge transform dating by offering unlimited choice. Instead of meeting someone because they happen to live nearby, people now scroll through hundreds of profiles in minutes. The Solentech article reinforces this. Technology has expanded the dating pool, diversified partner possibilities, and influenced the qualities people prioritize. Looks, interests, lifestyle alignment, and even app-specific cues like prompts or voice notes now inform attraction before two people ever meet. Researchers at Utah State University add another layer. Technology not only changes how relationships begin, but also how they progress. The 2019 study noted that technology can deepen connection through frequent communication, but it can also introduce new conflicts, misunderstandings, and pressures unique to digital environments. Social media apps like Instagram, Snapchat, and TikTok are now part of how people signal interest, flirt, or evaluate compatibility. The Harvard Gazette article, Tech Has Changed. Dating? It's Complicated, explains that social media creates new emotional dynamics, including the pressure to publicly display affection, jealousy triggered by likes, follows, and comments, comparing your relationship to idealized couples online, and parasocial attachments to influencers or creators. These elements didn't exist in pre-digital romance. Now someone's online presence is inseparable from how they're perceived romantically. Technology isn't just convenient, it fulfills psychological needs. Using uses and gratifications theory, we can understand that people turn to digital platforms to satisfy the desire for connection, validation and attention, entertainment, identity exploration, and emotional support. Online spaces also influence the pace and style of communication. Texting and DMing feel less intimidating than face-to-face conversation, which leads us straight into self-disclosure theory, the idea that people often reveal more of themselves online and often more quickly. This relates closely to the hyperpersonal model. Online communication allows selective self-presentation, curated photos, thoughtful responses, or edited messages, which can make two people feel closer faster. The Soul Pancake video illustrates this beautifully. Strangers form deep emotional connections simply through structured questions delivered online. If that level of intimacy can happen between strangers in minutes, it makes sense that digital tools can intensify romantic relationships early on. While mainstream apps dominate, niche platforms are becoming increasingly influential. The Vox 2014 article explains that Farmers Only, a dating site specifically for rural agricultural communities, reached 1.5 million users, with the majority being actual farmers. This trend shows how the internet doesn't just broaden the dating pool, it organizes it. People can now find partners who share their lifestyle, culture, or values more easily than ever before. Not everyone has equal access to this new form of dating. The Education Superhighway 2017 report highlights significant disparities in broadband access, especially for rural communities and low-income students. This aligns with the Pew Research Center report findings. Some individuals struggle to maintain relationships because of poor connectivity or lack of access to devices, affecting everything from texting rhythms to video calls. Access shapes opportunity, and in the digital era, romantic opportunity is no exception. Now that we've looked at how technology has transformed the beginning of romantic connections, I want to shift into something that often gets overshadowed by all the negative headlines: the real, meaningful benefits of online and technology-supported relationships. There's a tendency to talk about digital dating like it's the end of real intimacy, but when you look at the research, that's not actually true. Technology hasn't destroyed love. In many ways, it has expanded it. First, one of the biggest advantages technology offers is simple but powerful: access. The Pew Research Center's 2020 report found that Americans who use dating apps often meet people they never would have encountered otherwise, and that was especially true for individuals living in rural areas, those with smaller social circles, or those whose lifestyle makes traditional dating difficult. Think about it. Before dating apps, your options were really limited to your school, your workplace, your town, or your immediate community. Now someone in a small Midwest town can match with someone in Los Angeles, New York, or Chicago. Someone working overnight shifts can meet someone whose schedule matches theirs. Someone who's introverted or socially anxious can initiate connection at their own pace. And for LGBTQ+ youth, this can be life-changing. The Harvard Gazette explains that many LGBTQ+ individuals find safer, more welcoming spaces online than they do in person, places where they can explore identity, express themselves, and connect with others who understand them. Technology, in this sense, becomes a doorway to visibility, belonging, and romantic possibility. Another benefit is the thoughtfulness of digital communication. The Solentech article emphasizes that people often express themselves more clearly online. Texting or messaging allows people to take a second to think about what they want to say, choose their words, and genuinely communicate their emotions. For people who struggle with in-person vulnerability, this space can make a huge difference in forming healthy relationships. This ties into self-disclosure theory, which suggests that people disclose more and more deeply when they feel safe. And online, safety can come from having time to pause before responding, or from not having to reveal everything at once. The Soul Pancake video is a perfect real-world example. Strangers who answered structured questions through digital prompts formed deep emotional bonds in a matter of minutes. If two strangers can form genuine closeness that quickly, imagine what can happen in a romantic context where people already feel drawn to each other. Technology has also transformed the way long-distance relationships function. According to the Utah State University report, digital communication tools, FaceTime, texting, shared photo albums, even apps that let couples watch shows together, help partners remain emotionally present even when they're physically far apart. Before this technology, long-distance relationships relied on brief, expensive phone calls and slow mail exchanges, which often made emotional closeness difficult to maintain. Now, couples in different cities or even different countries can share daily life moments in real time. Everything from celebrating milestones to resolving conflicts can happen through video calls or voice messages, creating a sense of togetherness that previous generations didn't have. Finally, digital relationships can provide critical emotional support for people who feel isolated. The UW-Madison article, "Does Technology Interfere in Our Love Stories?" acknowledges that technology can certainly create problems, but it also emphasizes that for some people, online relationships are a source of stability and confidence. People with social anxiety, chronic illness, disabilities, or limited mobility often find that online relationships give them space to connect meaningfully without overwhelming social pressure. Technology can be a bridge, not a barrier. But of course, for every benefit that technology brings into our romantic lives, there's also a psychological challenge. These challenges don't mean online dating is bad, but they do mean we need to understand the mental load that comes with living in a hyper-connected world. One of the clearest challenges is choice overload. The Hernando Sun piece points out that dating apps create an illusion of infinite possibilities. And while that sounds great, psychology tells us that too many choices can actually make us feel less satisfied. It becomes easier to second-guess ourselves or assume that someone better is just one swipe away. Pew's 2020 report notes that some users feel discouraged by the constant evaluation and comparison involved in online dating. Instead of investing in one connection, people often jump from conversation to conversation, leading to more uncertainty and less commitment. Online, people naturally show the best versions of themselves, or at least a very curated one. The Solutech article explains that curated digital selves can create an emotional disconnect between who we are online and who we are in real life. Add that to the eHarmony 2017 statistic that 53% of users admit to lying on their profiles, and it becomes easy to see why expectations often don't match reality. This isn't about deception, it's about pressure. Pressure to appear attractive, funny, accomplished, stable. But when two curated selves collide in person, disappointment can happen on both sides. Social media also adds another layer of complexity. The Harvard Gazette highlights how young adults compare their relationships to curated highlight reels of influencer couples or peers. This comparison can quietly undermine self-esteem, create jealousy, and even distort what healthy looks like. Even the performance of your own relationship, anniversaries, couple photos, Instagram stories, can create pressure to appear perfect to others, sometimes at the expense of genuine connection. Technology has introduced whole new categories of emotional pain, like ghosting, breadcrumbing, orbiting, and benching. The UW-Madison article emphasizes that technology makes avoidance easier. Instead of confronting conflict, people just vanish. This can create confusion, anxiety, and feelings of inadequacy for the person on the receiving end. Dating apps also tap into our brain chemistry. Utah State University's research points out that app design intentionally uses novelty and unpredictable rewards, the same mechanism used in slot machines, to keep people swiping. Every match or notification triggers a small dopamine release, which reinforces the habit. This is reinforcement theory in action. Unpredictable, intermittent rewards are the most powerful way to form behavioral loops. Professor Gernsbacher's heuristics add another layer: the availability heuristic, representativeness heuristic, and anchoring. These shortcuts were always part of human judgment, but dating apps amplify them because profiles are designed to be judged instantly. Finally, digital dating assumes that everyone has strong internet access, but that's simply not true. The Education Superhighways 2017 report shows that many rural and low-income communities still struggle with broadband access. Pew's 2020 report confirms that many individuals say poor internet access affects how they flirt, communicate, or maintain relationships. This means digital romance isn't equally accessible. It's shaped by economic and geographic factors. Now that we've looked at both the benefits and the challenges of digital age relationships, I want to zoom out and bring in the perspectives of experts: psychologists, communication researchers, sociologists, and writers who study modern intimacy. Because while we all feel the effects of technology in our romantic lives, experts help explain why these shifts feel so different and what they mean for our generation. Across the sources like the Harvard Gazette, the Pew Research Center, UW-Madison, and Utah State University, one idea is repeated over and over. Technology hasn't eliminated human connection, it has reorganized it. What used to happen organically through proximity and routine now often happens intentionally through apps, profiles, shared media, and curated communication. The Harvard Gazette interview explains that the entire story arc of dating has changed. Relationships no longer follow the predictable steps older generations took for granted. Instead of meeting, talking, dating, committing, and building a life together, modern couples often go through cycles like matching, messaging, a talking stage, soft launching on Instagram, negotiating exclusivity, and maintaining constant digital contact. The article emphasizes that these shifts create new emotional skills people must develop, like learning to read tone without facial expressions, managing jealousy triggered by social media, and navigating ambiguity that technology often introduces. Experts also agree that dating apps and digital communication change our psychological experience of attraction. The Utah State University article didn't go deep into neuroscience, but it referenced research showing that apps stimulate the brain's reward system. Each swipe or match provides a tiny dopamine rush, which reinforces behavior. Psychologists call this the variable ratio reinforcement schedule, the same mechanism that makes slot machines so addictive. This doesn't mean people use dating apps just for the dopamine. What it does mean is that technology taps into biological mechanisms of reward, novelty, and curiosity. This can make modern dating exciting, but it can also make it exhausting. The UW-Madison article brings up a nuanced point. Technology doesn't just change how often we communicate, it changes what communication means. In face-to-face relationships, silence has a meaning, pauses have a meaning. Tone and body language guide interpretation. But in digital communication, silence might mean someone is busy, or annoyed, or asleep, or losing interest, or having internet issues. The ambiguity itself becomes a stressor. Communication experts call this signal ambiguity, and technology introduces it constantly. A message left undelivered or opened becomes a mini psychological puzzle. A partner posting on social media but not responding to a text can trigger anxiety, especially in people with anxious attachment styles. The Solentech and Hernando-Sun articles highlight how technology has changed what we expect in romantic partners. We expect things like faster responses, more emotional transparency, stronger communication skills, a polished digital presence, alignment in lifestyle and values seen through posts, and clarity on intentions. Technology also introduced new rituals, like soft launching a partner, syncing playlists, maintaining snap streaks, sending TikToks as communication, and curating matching Instagram posts. These are real bonding behaviors, but they didn't exist 10 years ago. The cultural script for dating has expanded, and in many ways it has become more complex. The Vox article adds an important sociological insight. Technology allows people to sort themselves by lifestyle, identity, and values much more intentionally. Farmers Only, becoming a major platform with over 1.5 million users and 70 to 80% involvement in agriculture, shows how dating is no longer just about location. It's about compatibility rooted in daily life, values, culture, and community. This trend toward niche dating is growing everywhere, from religious dating apps to apps for creatives, athletes, pet owners, or people with specific political beliefs. Experts agree on this. Technology hasn't weakened our desire for love. It has changed the pathways through which love forms. And those pathways reflect the psychology, culture, expectations, and pressures unique to our generation. As I reflect on everything I've learned from the research, from psychology, and from observing my own generation, I realize that love today feels different because the world around us is different. Technology has transformed how we meet, talk, express affection, how we fight, judge compatibility, and even how we define a relationship. But one thing hasn't changed. People still want to be seen, understood, valued, and connected. Studying this topic showed me how deeply psychology explains the way we navigate digital relationships. Attachment theory explains why waiting for a text back can feel overwhelming or not. Cognitive heuristics explains why we swipe left or right based on tiny cues. Social comparison theory explains why Instagram makes us question our own relationships. Social disclosure theory explains why online intimacy can form so quickly, and reinforcement theory explains why apps are so hard to quit. In a way, the digital world magnifies psychological processes that were always there. It just puts them on a bigger, brighter stage. For our generation, technology isn't an add-on to dating, it is dating. We're the first people in history to navigate ghosting at scale, matches that never turn into messages, relationships that start on Instagram, heartbreak delivered through a text, partners we never meet but feel emotionally attached to, and endless choice, which can feel empowering and exhausting at the same time. We're also the first generation to build relationships across states or countries using FaceTime, voice notes, TikToks, and shared playlists. Technology isn't ruining us, it's reshaping us, and we're learning. Through this project, I realized that digital relationships are not inherently better or worse than traditional ones. They're just different, and they require self-awareness. They require clearer communication, healthier boundaries, patience with ambiguity, understanding how technology influences emotion, and compassion for ourselves and others. Behind every swipe, every unread message, every Instagram post, and every voice note is a person trying to connect. Someone just as hopeful, confused, curious, or cautious as we are. Love hasn't disappeared. It's just evolving. Technology doesn't decide whether our relationships succeed. We do. It simply gives us more tools, more opportunities, and yes, more complexities to navigate. So if there's one thing to take from this, it's that we should approach digital relationships with intentionality, empathy, and openness. Because while the platforms may change, the desire to connect deeply and authentically remains the same.